Welcome back. It's time for another episode of Avril, Crump and Her Amazing Clones, a book that is published by Orchard Books, which is an imprint of Scholastic, who have given me permission to read it. Um, and when we left off, the clones were in Rechford-on-Reek, which is Avril's town. They've run away from Leviticus and they're looking for a place to stay. They knock on the door of this like hotel or inn, and this man Lionel opens the door, and at first he doesn't want to let them in, and then they mention Leviticus Laboratories, and all of a sudden he's very interested and lets them in. So I will read the last little bit from last time and then start on the new part. Okay. Jaw still hanging, the man turned to gaze at Augustus, who was warming himself by the fire. A talking dog, he managed, and a Torquenwan at that. Incredible. So remember, Eddie made up Torquenwan because she didn't want him to know that he was a talking dog. He still thinks Torquenwan is a thing. Please, Eddie said. She felt close to tears. It's very cold. We have to find somewhere else to stay. Leviticus, you say? And you're running away? The man looked thoughtful for a moment. Then he smiled. His face crinkled into comfortable lines. You can't start wandering around a town this hour. Besides, does it say no clones anywhere on that sign? Well, no, but so come in out of the cold. We can't stand about gossiping all night. My name's Lionel, by the way. Now, I've got a bit of stew inside that I think you'll enjoy. With a whimper of delight, Bonaparte bounded through the open door. Thank you, Eddie blinked at the man. Now that someone was being nice to her, it was hard to hold back tears of relief. This is very kind of you. Not at all. Anyone running from Leviticus Laboratories is welcome in my home. I've got a thing or two I could tell you about that outfit, he added. Now, hurry on in. Anybody could be listening. He ushered Eddie inside and shut the door against the freezing night. Now remember, Avril and Dr. Weatherby have been kidnapped by somebody connected to Dr. Sedepta. The first thing Avril noticed as she came to was the low rumbling noise. It was probably Professor Kobayashi from astrophysics practicing his cello in the library again. Well, she couldn't wait around listening. She had to track down those clones. It was only when she opened her eyes and tried to get up that she realized that she was not at Leviticus. She was lying face down in a car trunk, and the low rumbling was the engine. She told herself to stay calm and think. The trouble was that her head was pounding, still sore from her meeting with a hard concrete floor. In addition to this, her body felt unnaturally heavy, as though she had been drugged. She was struggling to stay awake. Hey, she called, pounding weakly on the lid of the trunk. You can't do this to me, Dr. Weatherby. This is kidnapping. But Avril suddenly thought through the haze. Didn't Dr. Weatherby drive a small second-hand car? Yet this car trunk was enormous, and the engine was purring expensively. And how had he managed to lift her 200-pound bulk all by himself? As Avril sank again into her drugged sleep, somebody began to whistle in the front of the car. It was not Dr. Weatherby. Chapter 7. Lionel's Conspiracies. Lionel's living room was tiny and a real mess. There was just one armchair in front of the open fire in which Augustus was already ensconced. He was dozing. One moment, please. Lionel produced a thin metallic device from a drawer and proceeded to wave it behind Bonaparte's ears and the backs of his knees. He did the same for Eddie before nodding with relief and replacing the device. Bug detector, he explained. You never can be too careful. Eddie did not really know what he was talking about, but she was too tired to care. Somebody else was taking charge now. I know what you're thinking. Lionel was bustling about, fetching cushions for Eddie and Bonaparte to sit on, and going in and out of a small and very grimy looking kitchen with a pot and some plates. Doesn't look like much, a bed and breakfast. Eddie had not been thinking this, but she smiled politely. She took the plate of stew he was offering her and passed it along to Bonaparte, who fell on it with a little cry. Well, it's not, he lowered his voice. That's just my cover story. I need to look like I'm employed so I can keep an eye on things around here without rousing any suspicion. What things? Eddie asked, accepting a plate of stew for herself. That retirement home across the road, for starters. Lionel's voice dropped to a whisper, and he peeped around the curtain. That's why I moved here. No one believes me, but there's an international organized crime unit operating out of there. Really? Eddie tasted her stew. It was surprisingly good. But I mustn't say too much. Lionel was studying her. You seem like a bright girl, he said. Did you see anything suspicious up at Leviticus? The whole place was suspicious, if you ask me. Augustus opened one eye and held out a paw for stew. Unpleasant explosions and horribly smelly dumpsters. Exactly! Lionel slammed a triumphant fist on the filthy coffee table. Stew splattered. The whole place is suspicious. And now here you three are, human clones. Well, 2 humans and a Torkenwan. I've suspected human cloning's been going on for some time, of course. You only have to look at those suspicious so-called boy bands. He made quotation marks in the air with his fingers. Always 5 members, always 3 who can't sing, 2 who can't dance, terrible white suits. Don't tell me there's not something funny going on there. I've always said it, but no one on the force would listen. I used to be a policeman. The scourge of crime in Retchford, he added sadly. Of course, I haven't worked for almost 20 years now. None of that young crowd at the station even know who I am. Did you retire? Eddie asked. Retire? If only. He stared around at them. Can you keep secrets? Oh, indeed we can, kind sir. Bonaparte was gobbling stew. A secret shared is a secret halved. In faith, I shall tell no one who is not interested. They got rid of me, Lionel whispered. Orders from the highest possible source, if you know what I mean. He tapped his nose. Well, they claimed the pressure of the work was getting to me, but I know the real reason. They wanted to silence me for months, ever since I got close to the truth about Chunky's chocolate factory testing their dangerous chemicals on unknowing humans with the double chocolate, triple marshmallow, quadruple crunchy fudge, no fat, no cholesterol, no dairy chocolate bar. Eddie felt she should say something. That does sound suspicious. Sounds downright disgusting, if you ask me, Augustus said. That was just the beginning, Lionel continued. Once you scratch the surface, there are cover-ups and corruption lurking everywhere. But no, they wouldn't listen to me about Chunkies. They didn't listen to me about the boy bands either. But when I found out the chief was really a 6-foot bearded woman named Mabel, I refused to be silenced any longer. I tried to unmask him when he gave his opening speech at the annual police chiefs conference, but his beard wouldn't come off no matter how hard I pulled. Well, next thing you know, I'm fired. Chief knew I'd gotten too close to his dark secret. Eddie choked on a mouthful of stew. Unbelievable, she said. This strange man was terribly kind, but the warmth of the fire was seeping into her icy bones, and she longed to curl up and drift off to sleep. I went quietly, of course, didn't want them to press charges. Besides, he lowered his voice to a whisper again, I already had other concerns on the back burner. He jerked his head in the direction of the retirement home. But that can wait. You must tell me everything you know about Leviticus. What did you see? What did you hear? He seized a messy notepad from underneath the pot of stew and poised himself to scribble in it. And how did you escape? Did you flee down a secret passage? There has to be a secret passage. Not exactly. Eddie kicked Bonaparte, who was gasping with excitement at the very thought. We just slid down the banisters, fell into a big trash bin, and got wheeled away. Perhaps Bonaparte had not been silenced by the kick. We were wheeled away down a secret passage. What thinkst thou, Mr. Lionel? I think that's a distinct possibility, Lionel said. Eddie was glad that the doorbell rang at that moment, which masked Augustus's snort of derision. Lionel sprang to his feet like an arthritic panther. Stay here and stay quiet, he hissed. Someone may have followed you. I'll get rid of them. Eddie held her breath as she heard Lionel open the front door. No, I haven't got a room for the night. What do you think this is, a hotel? She could breathe again. It was just some poor soul attracted by the inn sign. I have nowhere to sleep. Aren't there any hotels around here? Read the sign next time, came Lionel's reply as he slammed the door. Honestly, he said as he came back into the living room, bringing the freezing outside air with him. You'd think people would get the message. Funny-looking woman, too. Who on earth wears sunglasses in the middle of the night? Now, he turned a page to his notebook. This secret passage you were telling me about. I'm sure Avril would be able to tell you lots about Leviticus, Eddie said. Secret passages and all, but we don't know where she is. And who is this Avril? Dr. Avril Crump. She rescued us from the laboratory after the explosion. Laboratory? Explosion? Lionel scribbled in his notebook. We really need her help. She's the only one who knows about us, other than the man who wants to kill us, and she's the only friend we've got. You've got me too, Lionel said. Eddie's throat thickened. Thank you, Lionel. Maybe you can help us find her. She lives in this town. Well, I'll do all I can. Did this Avril mention anywhere in particular? Eddie was thinking hard, throwing her tired mind back to the meeting in the broom closet. No, she said, although, yes. Well, I was just remembering that Avril did mention someone in particular, the man who created us, a Professor Blott or something. Perhaps he might be able to help us. Professor Blott, Lionel said, writing down the name. That rings a bell. Tell you what, I'll go to the library first thing in the morning and see what information I can find on the web. Web! Bonaparte shrieked, clutching his legs up to his chest. I am afeard of spiders. World Wide Web, Lionel explained. The internet? Well, I suppose if you've only got long dead people's DNA, you wouldn't know anything about stuff like the internet. I know, Eddie hesitated, screwed up her eyes. I think I know. The internet. It's familiar. Well, maybe you've got some other DNA too. But bright-eyed and alert Lionel was too excited about secret tunnels to dwell on the clone's specific DNA. Now tell me more about your escape. Augustus raised a paw. Yes? Lionel was paused with his notebook. Throw another log on the fire, said the dog, settling down for a long and comfortable doze. Okay, let's stop there. So Lionel seems to be a conspiracy theorist, one of those people who's like always looking for some secret society or evil plot behind everything. But maybe in this case, he's actually on to something. All right, we'll see you next time. Bye.